Hello, Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity, and today I'm going to bring some good news and some bad news within the good news. And this has everything to do with the American Heart Association's diet quality scores in looking at over a decade from 1999 to 2020. So you'll notice that number stops at the pandemic. I'm guessing that people's diets generally didn't improve over the pandemic, but we really can't see. This stops at 2020. And it looked at dietary adherence to what the American Heart Association considers a good dietary score. Doesn't look at Life's Essential 8 from the American Heart Association, looks at diet, sleep, cholesterol, blood pressure. Most of those are diet related, but they also have exercise, sleep in there. This study did not look at that. So it looked at dietary measures. The American Heart Association's dietary measures are, they leave something to be desired. There's still a good baseline from a population study, but keep in mind, if you really want to have good heart health, there's some things you need to tweak based on their recommendations. And so it's a pretty low-hanging fruit to hit. So basically your diet has to be pretty good to meet the American Heart Association scoring of a good diet. And to rank that, and by the way, there are almost 52,000 people in this study, so it's a big sample size, if you will. So poor adherence to the dietary guidelines were 40% or below. And intermediate was 40 to 80%. These are the scoring. So this is how they considered poor, intermediate, or ideal, was you were matching 80% or more of the metrics of the American Heart Association's dietary score. So 80% of a low-hanging fruit, it's not that hard to meet, right? So you just have to really do the right things. I'm not going to go into the details of that. I've certainly covered a lot of that over the years. So what's the good news is that the data on the metrics on how many people are in each category improved over the decade. So people with poor adherence, so remember 40% or lower adherence, dropped from 49% to 37%. That's a pretty good change. The intermediate group got bigger. So it went from 50% to 61%, or 51 to 61. That's a pretty good change. The ideal metric improved from 0.66% to 1.58%. I don't know what else to say. This is a low-hanging fruit. The standards need to be changed and improved and more specific, and it doesn't include diet and exercise, and you just had to meet 80% of the dietary changes, and it's just a freaking paltry number of people that have these ideal metrics. And it's always when you see people, they had a good diet or they were healthy, you can pretty much assume that they probably weren't healthy, because people think that we've seen that people who think they're healthy and eating good diet really are not. And people define healthy as not having a diagnosis. It doesn't mean that everything, their body isn't inflamed and on fire and they're not carrying too much weight and their diet sucks and they're not exercising. This just needs to change. So to have 1.5, less than 2% of the population of 52,000 meeting a low-hanging fruit and only 80% of that metric was met, we need to wake up and change. These dietary changes aren't that hard to do. We just need to make a decision to take better care of ourselves. It's just not going to work any other way. We can't out-medicate ourselves. And I think maybe people think that they're going to be okay by not making good choices because I won't die of a heart attack. I'll just go on statins or blood pressure medication or whatever. That's not the case. Those really don't change the trajectory. They just cost more and side effects, and you just basically die still, but with better numbers. So, as always, I'll post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.